I wish this would take you, I could promise you it would take you all the way to your plant, but it won't, but it'll get you started. But I'm going to just search for vine and see what happens. Well, I get 159 vines, and that's way too many to look at. Let's go back. Let's see, we saw it in the mountains, and the flower is red. It blooms in the spring. Well, now we're down to 8. Well, I mean, maybe you could figure it out from 8. I mean, that's, you know, that's helpful. Let me show you one other thing. Keys. I don't know how many of y'all have gotten into trying to use plant keys. Okay. To most of us, they're pretty intimidating. And sometimes even when you come out successful, you know, you've actually found the plant, it's like being in a maze blindfolded, and you go step by step, and then you come out and you're where you need to be, but you don't know how you got there. Well, I've started a series of keys on this website that they're based on other people's keys that are the type of key that they build an architecture in your mind so that you come out with natural groupings. You might come away from that knowing what your plant is, but you also come away with, well, there's 3 groups within this category, and you can hang your species within a group, and it just makes it so much easier. Instead of 42 trilliums, you know, I only need to look at 12. Well, that's easier to find something. So this is a key to asters, and if you know asters, those are not easy to figure out. It's not going to be easy even with this key, but it's fun. Okay, so we have it grouped by inflorescence, which is the way the flowers are grouped or clustered. What color, and we're saying either kind of blue or white. And we have different types of leaves. Well, inflorescence, well, I don't know what panicle, raceme, or corymb mean. Well, you can click the link and go read the definition. Or you can just click the picture and look at the difference. Okay, so that's a corymb. Top, keeping connections at the bottom. And that's a panicle. Go read the definition. But anyway, you can see the picture. Or singly. Okay, so then we go, the leaves, okay, they have clasping bases. And see the little notch there where the blade of the leaf actually kind of goes back around the stem just a little bit. They call that a clasping base. So are the leaves clasping? Are they, you know, heart-shaped and on a stalk? Are they tapered and right up to the stem? Or are they kind of grass-like? So, and you notice that the list of plants changes with each selection here. So if you want to look at these, you click Submit, and that'll take you to a list of plants like you got the other ways. I've touched on several of the website's features, and what I want to do next, I'm going to change gears slightly and show you or tell you about a few ways that people I know have used the website. This is fun, but what's the point? It's kind of like if you want to learn it and you are interested in it, but then how can you use that? What can you do with that knowledge? Oh dear, sorry about that. Yeah, maybe so. Where am I? Here we go. Where am I? Okay, let me see. Okay, now I'm back to PowerPoint, and I want to tell you a few ways that people have used this site that I'm aware of. And the three ways that I'm going to talk about could all be grouped under the category of citizen science. And Wikipedia defines citizen science as scientific research conducted in whole or in part by amateur or non-professional scientists. And then end quote. No single scientist or team of scientists can hope to accumulate the kind of data that an interested and informed citizenry can provide. And we're used to birders doing bird counts. And we know, that we're accustomed to that, but we kind of aren't aware of the fact that the observations that we, an interested and informed citizenry, can provide the botanical scientist can also be useful. It was a PTA mom who discovered a bunched arrowhead in the woods behind her son's elementary school in Travelers Rest. Now, that plant is considered to be globally imperiled. It's only known to grow in 2 or 3 counties in the world. And she found a population that was previously undocumented. And this population was getting abused because the parking lots and the school playing fields, the runoff from those fields was crashing into the woods and just really damaging the plants. And because of her discovery, now they've re-diverted the parking lot water and they've done a lot of work, so those plants are now going to be protected. But she was just an interested person, who tracked down what that plant was. This plant, Carolina crownbeard, I know 2 landowners, one in Spartanburg, one in Greenville, both of whom were curious about this plant they'd never seen before. It was just unfamiliar. It was growing on their property. And it turns out that, it's not supposed to grow up here. It's weird. It grows there and it grows down on the coast. And we don't have Greenville and Spartanburg counties on the map yet, and I think y'all have got it around here. But what's going on? In the 60s it wasn't known but on the coast, and now it's popping up in some odd places. Now, is this global warming? Is this, why? But unless it's reported, the botanists don't have the purview to go into each of y'all's property and see, oh, well, you've got this plant that I didn't know was there. You've got to see it and tell somebody, or else they won't know. So it's just interesting. It's just data to be collected. And this is the third example that I want to tell you about. And this is one that I'd like you to pay a little closer attention to because it's scary. And this birder goes down to Lake Honesty, and sometimes he looks at birds and sometimes he looks at plants. And he saw this plant and he didn't know what it was. Well, this plant is, it's not supposed to be here. It's the first time it had been found in the state. The name of it is, the Latin is Ficaria verna. Used to be called Ranunculus ficaria, which is a kind of buttercup, and commonly called fig buttercup or lesser celandine. It's been cultivated in North America for over 150 years. Wordsworth wrote poems in praise of it. It's derived from Europe, Northern Africa. And the maps don't currently show it as being down here in the southeast. So consequently, most of the southeastern botanists, it's not even on the radar. I mean, it's not part of our flora, so nobody's looking for it. Nobody knows to look for it. But this is a letter from Alan Weekly, the curator of University of North Carolina Herbarium. And this, I'm just going to read it. This plant is seriously on the move. It's one of those somewhat mysterious plants that's been cultivated for a long time, but recently has become aggressive. And it's starting to naturalize outside the garden. But it comes up so early, and it grows, it's carried along streams, and so these urban creeks and all, where these will have a little natural area in an urban creek, you know, that's not generally where botanists are doing their field studies. You know, that's where y'all might go. But anyway, nobody's looking. It's also a very early plant. It comes up like in December, and it's gone very quickly. So they say that it's transitioned out of the lag phase of population growth, so it's been going like this, and now it's you know, jumping up. We have found it. It is being found popping up into the southeast, but we don't really know where all it is because, like I say, people haven't been looking for it. I'm just going to give y'all some mug shots to put in your mind so that you'll be aware of it and you can spot it. I also brought some samples to show you too. So it comes up very early. Once it's established, it has a solid carpet that no native can penetrate. That carpet, when it's in bloom, looks like a green carpet with yellow polka dots. The flowers have kind of a darker center, generally 8 petals, but that can vary. The roots have finger-like tubers. And that's probably one of the most definitive ways to tell it. These are some plants that were dug up in Greenville County where the birders saw them. And you look at those tubers. This plant was dug up in Rockville. 5 subspecies in a little bit. Any one of those tubers, if broken off, can be a new plant. And whenever I was washing these, just to show you, I washed them in a colander because the colander got full of these little, they just break off so brittly. So if you have some in the garden and you're digging them up, you're going to leave all these little tubers that will come up. 2 of the 5 subspecies have axillary bulbils, which are bulbils that will be in the axil between the stem and a leaf. And any one of those bulbils will also come up. So the plant can reproduce in 3 ways. It's a scary plant. and nothing can penetrate, either the leaves or that thick tangle of tubers. It's pretty easy to spot that. But sometimes, before it's really established, you might not notice that. It's just a little cluster of leaves. After you start looking, you get to where you can kind of spot it. But it's a basal rosette, which is, the leaves come up from the ground and they all come out kind of like a little Sam-defined basal rosette. I mean,
I think you're doing a better job. They tend to lie flat, pressed on the ground, in a circular form.
yeah, it's like a little crown of leaves, just all coming out from the same point. There's one plant that when I'm looking for it, especially early on when it's not blooming yet, I get confused with it. And that's the innocent little weedy kidney leaf buttercup. And the leaves kind of resemble one another, but the underside of the fig buttercup, see how the netted venation on that was just so obvious. So it looked reptilian to us. And it did. I mean, it really helped us to tell the difference between that and that. And also, you don't really see a midvein, but you can feel it. Can you see the shadow there, kind of, where that petiole, that leaf stalk, goes into the leaf blade? And even though the leaves vary somewhat, they all seem to have, that I've seen, have that reptilian pattern. It has a very short life cycle. So this was May 1st. It was already turning yellow. Mid-May, early June, the only thing that was left were these bulbils on the ground. And it was just a bare spot. So each one of those bulbils, that's what it was doing this a couple of weeks ago. They were sprouting. It's normally found adjacent to water, a creek, a river, a floodplain. I would add to that a creek that flows through a residential area or a town, because we found where we found this was in Lake Conestee Nature Park, where that Reedy River flows through Greenville, and then it opens up in the park in a floodplain, and we found it up here and down here and a little bit over here. But that was over 1.5 miles were scattered patches. If you ever get a note like this from a friend, don't answer it. The plant is often confused with marsh marigold, which is a rare native plant. They both have, the leaves are similar, they both have yellow flowers. But if somebody has some in their garden and they're spreading, it's not marsh marigold. And you need to talk to him. But this guy realized shortly after we discovered our find of plants that the plants in his yard were indeed fig buttercup. And he took steps to destroy those in his yard, and he said, there's a creek runs through my yard, I'm concerned, So we checked out that creek. This is where he lives. And we checked, the creek flows through some other houses, goes through a culvert under a road, down here, And we found the plant here, half-mile downstream. That's what the creek looked like. We found it in Rock Hill along another urban creek. And this was, that was it. It hadn't established like some of those big expanses, but it was there, which is scary. Plant is still for sale. It's declared invasive in 10 states. It's illegal. It's banned in 2, but it's still legal in most of the country. And but like I said, we don't know where it is. We're trying to get it declared invasive in the southeast because it's definitely acting invasively. We're trying to get it illegal. But first of all, we need people to look for it and report their findings, because until people start saying it's here, nobody pays any attention. So if you think you see it, take a good picture, send it to one of these 2 guys. Don't send it to both of them, they're busy.
Do you know if it's edible?
John Nelson ate the roots. He said they didn't taste very good. I think it's been used for hemorrhoids. But, you can read about it.
What's the best way to manage it?
The best herbicide, like a Roundup thing, that, and if it's near water, they recommend that it be a water approved. Can you say the word glyphosate? Glyphosate. I mean, the chemical that's in Roundup is they need a wetland approved version of that, because so often you're going to find these plants near water, and that's how they spread. So to spray it needs to be early, because once it starts blooming, that's when it's easiest to see. After that blooming period, they say the efficacy, am I saying that right, starts going downhill, because the plant starts dying very quickly, as I showed you how it turns yellow very quickly and then just vanishes. You won't even see leaves. You won't see anything that lets you know that plant was there.
So Janie, we would be likely to, if we saw it, we would be likely to see it in January, February, the flowers?
The flowers, the pictures that I showed you, April 9th. So I think late March, early April would be when you'd see the flowers. The plants in Greenville and Rock Hill, or in Greenville, they came up in December. So, but they're little then. They're easier to see now than they were in January, but the flowers is going to be late March, early April, and that's when it's going to be easiest to spot. But that's when you have such a little time to do anything about it, because that's one of the things that makes it so hard to deal with. Because by the time you notice it, it's gone. I mean, or by the time, in one case, we had a grad student who saw it in the Smokies. Well, she didn't know what it was. She took a picture, she took it back, showed it to Alan Weekly, and he identified it, and then she emailed the folks, the rangers. Well, a month had gone by. So she saw it April 8th, she emailed them May 11th. They went to look, they said, well, we can't find it. Well, it was gone. I mean, it just is, it's scary. Anyway.
Digging it up would be counterproductive than spreading it.
If you have a very, very little bit and you're very careful, you can dig it up and just make sure you get all the little bulblets and tubers. And then I would put it in a plastic bag and I would spray that bag with Roundup, because our friend here that had the the plants in his yard. He dug them up and he put them in a plastic bag, and you don't want to take it to the landfill because, I mean, they could sprout there. You know, I feel like I've got radioactive material, you know. So he kept them in the bag, and he kept waiting for them to die, and he said, it's been a year, and now they're sprouting in the bag. So I guess, you know, you've got to spray them in the bag. But, I mean, but if you're, they do say, though, that sometimes just the digging of them up can encourage them rather than kill them. But I think, I've got the samples here. I'll put them up here next to the book. And I think I'm through talking, unless you've got any questions.
You want to let people know, too, about the South Carolina Native Plant Society books you have available?
The books over there are from the inventory of the South Carolina Native Plant Society. So the profit from those books goes to the upstate chapter of the South Carolina Native Plant Society. We are selling them for less than the list price. Might not be quite as good as you can get from Amazon, but it's in between there. My husband Steve is taking the money for those. I've got some handouts up there that I forgot to put out earlier. We've got a plant sale coming up in April if anybody wants to plant plants, or even I find it's just fun to go and look at them. And let me put these samples over here. So, yes.
How big is your database? This is so impressive.
How big as in how many plants or how many gigabytes?
Plants.
I think it's about 3,000 plants and maybe 11,000 is some pictures, something like that. I'm not sure. I started in earnest in 2003. And it was 3 years, 2.5 years, it was 2006 that I put it up for the first time. You know, because it took that long just to get it enough to where it was something that anybody could use. And of course I've been adding on. You know, you never finish a project like this. I mean, it's not a project that I would take on lightly. I had no idea what I was getting into when I started.
How long have you been working on it?
Well, since 2003. So,
Are you the only one that works on it?
I'm the only one that works on it, but, you know, photographers will contribute their photographs, or, you know, all these nice people that I email and I say, what's this? You know. So there's a lot of other people whose expertise is incorporated in it, but it's not, I mean, getting it from their heads into the computer, it goes through these fingers. So.
What you've done is incredible and wonderful and a gift.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Janie, I think we all wish that all of the other people who come to different programs were all here to hear what you had to say. I'm so glad Pam has been able to video your presentation. I think that we have our job now is to go out and spread the word, because her work can be of benefit to thousands of people and to thousands of plants if we share what we know about what she's done. That's the beauty. I was sitting here thinking, you know, you go back to those young men in the, I guess, early 90s who said, we're going to have an open source system in the world where knowledge can be shared for free. And when you think about the time and the energy that you have contributed to this project and what it means as a legacy, you know, your legacy to the world is really, really. And we thank you for sharing.